All right, let's continue part 5 of the Pew Research in the Wealth Gap series. So the upper income wealth is $639,400 according to this blog post by Pew, and the middle income wealth is $96,500 from this Federal Reserve data set. Now, we've already looked at the Federal Reserve data. One of the things we found is that, generally speaking, people who are older have more wealth than people who are younger. So here's a question for Pew. And by the way, I did send them an email. I'll let you know if they sent me the answer to this question. Since they did all this collection of data and tabulation of the data and looked at the dimensions of data, well, did they get the median age for the upper income group and the median age for the middle income group? How do we know those are the same age? For instance, if the upper income median age, let's say hypothetically, is 55, and the median age for the middle income is 55, you could say, whoa, man, there's a wealth discrepancy there. Well, there's actually a lot of other factors, but that would start making the case of what Pew is trying to claim, right? However, what would happen if we found out that the median age for the upper income group is higher than the median age for the middle income group? Case in point, what if we found out that the middle income group's median age is 31 and the upper income group median age is 52? It's a difference of 21 years. Well, first of all, that's not just 21 years of more experience, assuming the same profession, but that's 21 years more to build wealth. You can see, just to hit this figure, the number of working years, the impact of working years to reach the figure, and this assumes absolutely no growth in wealth. I'll give you a very simple example of that in just a second. So what that means is if somebody was going to work 30 years, generally speaking, Americans, their expectations have risen, by the way. 30 to 40 years is considered to be a full career. You'll see they either have to save $21,313 a year to reach this figure for 30 years, or $15,985 a year if they work 40 years. And again, that assumes no increase in wealth. No like 6% a year or 10% a year, 11%. People who invest in the S&P 500 like to boast that they're going to get an 11% return. I don't think they're going to get the return they think they are, but let's suppose they're right. Well, then we're not calculating that on this figure. We're saying just a simple, to get to this figure, this is how much you need to save a year if you're going to work 40 years. Well, you can see the more years you work, the advantage is that you don't have to save quite as much each year. Now, in other words, if you want to reach this figure in 10 years, man, you have to save a lot each year, right? But if you want to reach it in 40 years, you only have to save $15,000. Now, put this in perspective, and let's just use a simple interest calculator, because we can do that really fast ahead. It would be a little bit trickier to use compound interest. Let's say $16,000 a year at 5% interest is $800 of interest a year. $800 of interest a year over 40 years. Remember, the first year that you save that money and it earns that $800, it now has those 40 years to grow, right? Now, we're not talking about interest upon interest, which is going to be even more money. We're just talking about simple interest. That $800 that you would be earning from that initial $16,000 you saved is $800 over 40 years. That's a total of $32,000. Remember, that's not interest upon interest. We're just talking simple interest. That $32,000 is 5%-ish, maybe 6%, but I think about 4 to 5% of this figure here. And that's only just 1 year of savings. That's, by the way, why saving money early in your life leads to disproportionate results later, right? It's the money that you save early that has the most time to grow. I mean, the person's already hit 5% of this goal just off of 1 year, 1 out of 40 years of savings, and that's just a simple interest calculator. The compound interest of that, might be in 35 to 40,000 range, which would be even more of a percent, 7 or 8%, right? So the thing is that this upper income figure, the median age does have a huge factor, right? If the person is much older and not much younger, then of course that explains a lot right off the bat. And we've already looked at the Federal Reserve data and saw that people who are older have more money, have more wealth than people who are younger. Look, that's just the way it is. Young people can get as mad and throw a fit. It doesn't matter. You don't have as many years of experience as they do. That's just the way it works. there will be another generation of kids that won't have as much experience as you, and they will make less money than you. It's just part of the way things occur in the economy. Also, there's some other missing analysis. These are just some of the points that I highlight that stood out. If you look at the same data set, the South's wealth increased 1.8 times faster than the North's wealth. It also increased faster than the Midwest and the West. The West saw the second highest increase. Very interesting. Of course, the problem with that I just highlighted is the South has a much, much, much lower cost of living than the North. For instance, if you look at New York City's cost of living versus Nashville's cost of living. So what that means is that the South's wealth disproportionately increased. It's not just 1.8 times faster because that money goes further in the South. Why doesn't Pew highlight this? I mean, this stood out. In other words, maybe some of the upper income group, maybe the reason why they have more money is because they live in the right place. By the way, Dr. Thomas Stanley, who I highly suggest looking at his research, that's one of the things that he's found is that the upper income or the millionaires are actually people who live in the right place. It's one of the keys to becoming a millionaire. You got to live in the right place. You can't live in a place where the standard of living is dropping. Also, retirees didn't see the increase in wealth that the self-employed and employed did. Meaning that if you want to increase your wealth, you better be working. Not working is not going to increase your wealth. You're going to lose it, right? So why did the media mention this Pew Research blog post? And this is just a thought that I want you to think of as we go through this full series. What's going on here? Because as we see, there's some missing analysis. And as we see, they're not really telling us some very important factors that may play into explaining this data.